Hello, Janesville. Welcome back to Park Place Views, the monthly program that aims to keep Janesville residents informed by highlighting the people, places, and partners of the City of Janesville. As always, this program is proudly brought to you by the City of Janesville and JATV Media Services. I'm Peyton Walz, your host and the communications intern in the City Manager's office. Today, we have a special guest joining us, the newly appointed Janesville Fire Chief, Ryan Murphy. Chief Murphy brings over 25 years of dedicated service to our community, starting at his roots as a firefighter and paramedic and ascending through the ranks to his current role as Chief. Chief Murphy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's truly an honor to get to sit down with you and learn more about you and your journey as this vital role that you play keeping the Janesville community safe. So, just to start out, would you like to introduce yourself to the residents of Janesville?
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me. It's nice kind of doing radio interviews and all this and kind of getting introduced into this new role that I have. So I'm Ryan Murphy, though, but I've been here in Janesville for almost my entire life. So lifelong resident is what I consider. And then, through the fire department, I've come through the ranks from just a fire explorer all the way up to fire chief now.
So you said that you're a lifelong Janesville resident, and so you've been here your entire life. So can you share kind of your story to get from, firefighter up to fire chief?
So as I stated, I started off during high school. I joined the Janesville Fire Department Explorer post, and through that I learned a lot about the fire department and really knew that I wanted to be a firefighter, especially here in Janesville. So kind of talking about that, if there is anybody that's interested in the high school, or they know somebody in high school that's interested or not sure if they want to be a firefighter or not, the best thing they can do is just contact their counselor at high school or the fire department to really get that rolling to become a firefighter. We're looking for great people. So from being an explorer, I went to paramedic school and also went to Madison College and got some other certifications and got hired at the Janesville Fire Department, rode the ambulance for many years, and then went to being a firefighter and driver, and then became a lieutenant, captain, and eventually a battalion chief. And then recently, I was appointed fire chief in Janesville.
Wow, it's quite the journey to get where you are today. Is becoming a fire chief, was that always a deep-rooted goal for you?
When I first got hired, my goal was to be a battalion chief. And I was really happy doing that, but I realized being the chief of the department was going to give me a better opportunity to really impact the department itself and make impacts within the community to make it safer.
That's right, yeah. I know you have a bunch of different titles, so you don't have to go through every single one, but what are just some of your favorite aspects of each role that you've served in?
So when I was a firefighter paramedic and riding the engine or ladder truck as a firefighter, one of the things that I was able to get out and work with the community and address people's medical problems, try to help them through what some people consider the worst day of their lives or at their most vulnerable points in their lives. So being invited into people's homes to help them was a big, made me feel good. And that's a lot of the firefighters in Janesville, that's what they really enjoy doing, is getting in and interacting with people. As I worked up as a captain and lieutenant, just learning the roles of being a leader within the JFD and the organization and trying to start making positive impacts on fellow firefighters and working more with the community's special events, doing some planning, working with people from Parks and Rec and also the police department and operations within the city to really make our special events like the bike race, the fair, things like that, safer and more enjoyable for people within the city. Once I got to be a battalion chief, it's a part of, you really start to work with a big group of people and you really have an opportunity to impact them, their careers, and hopefully in a positive way to show them how you're leading the department or your shift and how maybe that impacts them.
Right. Yeah, no, that's an incredible answer. So I understand that you've probably taken thousands of calls within, your years in the fire department. Is there any particular call that has stood out to you?
Recently, before I was appointed chief, I did respond to the 200-car pileup on I-90, and that was such a different incident because there were so many different aspects of it in such a large geographic area. I read about it, saw videos, news clips of it, but never was really involved in something of that magnitude. So responding to that, and we were just lucky that there was no serious injuries or real serious, hazmat incident within an incident, anything like that. So that was the big one that I really responded to as a battalion chief, and probably the biggest one as any aspect of my career.
Right. I feel like Janesville's a good size where it's like big enough to make a difference, but also small enough to feel like it's a real community here. But that's an insane story of the pileup on I-90. Wow, I can't imagine having to go there and help people and deal with that.
Yeah,
that
and
really
I was a distance away from it, just where we had our command post, but there was so many within mutual aid partners and firefighters within the city of Janesville that did great work that day, made great calls and suggestions that really made that incident run smoothly.
Yeah, it's a team effort for sure. So speaking of team effort, there are 5 fire stations in Janesville. Can you explain the difference between the 5 and why we need 5?
So to start off with why we need 5, we actually probably could use an additional station or 2. We cover over 100 square miles because we just don't cover the city of Janesville. We also cover some of the surrounding townships. So based on our response times, we want to meet different marks by the National Fire Protection Association with response times, turnout times. So to have these stations strategically located gets us better to or closer to those strategic goals. So the outlying stations, we call them, are 2, 3, 4, and 5. They surround station number 1. They all have 5 firefighters, fire officer, a driver, and then 3 firefighter EMTs or 3 firefighter paramedics. We always have 2 firefighter paramedics that ride the ambulance, but there could be a combination, or there could be a firefighter EMT that's there as well. The difference between those is they all have fire engines and an ambulance, but Station 4 has our hazardous materials team, the equipment, the trucks and trailers, things like that. So that's based out of there. That's a partnership with the county that we have our Level B hazmat team within the county that we respond anywhere within the county itself. At Station 1, we have a tower ladder that's staffed by a captain, which is different than the outlying stations are staffed with lieutenants. We have a driver, and then we have that combination of 2 paramedics, possibly 3, but we always have a firefighter EMT as well. And then the difference with Station 1 is we also have the battalion chief that people would notice would ride around in what we have now is a pickup truck. We no longer have our Suburban. But at Station 1, we also have our what we call the triple threat vehicles. We have our boats, our dive truck, our heavy rescue vehicle. Since we do respond out in the township, we have a grass fire rig that responds to any field fires, things like that. But we also have our water tender that, since we don't have hydrants in the rural area, we may need to use our tender to bring water to us. And that's where we rely on some of our mutual aid partners as well to help us with water once we have a confirmed fire out in the township.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot that goes on beneath the surface. Because when you think of firefighter, you think of like, oh, going to houses, putting out fires. But it seems like there's a lot that you guys do.
Yeah, we have a dive rescue team. We have our hazardous materials team. We have firefighter paramedics and firefighters that are certified in swift water rescue, technical rescue, which goes anywhere from using ropes to rescue people, trench rescue, confined space, and building collapses. We have a drone team. We have people that install car seats. And they probably install around 100 a year, and that's a partnership with the police department as well.
How often are those other departments utilized?
For mutual aid and things like that?
Compared to, putting out the fires.
So mutual aid partners usually respond with us to those rural areas. But recently we had a larger apartment fire, and we had a lot of mutual aid partners or MABUS partners come in and assist us with controlling that fire, making sure we had enough water to put out the fire and keep that fire from extending to another building.
Yeah, you guys did a great job with that. My stepmom lives in those apartments, and her apartment was right on the corner, and she was the one that, one of the couple that got completely destroyed. So now she's living in, a different apartment now. But
I'm sorry to hear that.
it's been hard.
And recently, just since I've become the fire chief, we've had numerous things between the tornado, some severe weather, this fire that really impacts people, and we're doing our best to, and other partners within the city, Red Cross, ECHO, are doing their best to help families that are kind of struggling after such an event.
Yeah, you guys are really helping people at the worst day of their lives. So, yeah, I mean, just hearing about firefighters just growing up, like, completely respect them, like, honor the fire and the police, of course, but just, like, understanding what it feels like to just have everything be taken away. And it wasn't my house, it was my stepmom's, apartment with her kids, but just seeing those poor kids lose everything, and she lost everything, and it just puts everything into a different perspective.
Yeah, and it does affect police officers, firefighters, to see those type of things with people losing everything, but also some of the medical things, people passing away, stuff. And it does affect us over time, and the fire and police, all of emergency services is really focused a lot on mental health along with physical health, just because it is a lot for people to manage over time.
Yeah, it's a hard job. My dad used to be a police officer in Janesville, and then he transferred over to Clinton, but just like the stories of hearing what you guys have to go through on a day-to-day basis, that has to be so difficult. And like the mental health, like nowadays, is worse than ever. So I can't imagine having a job like yours with so much pressure and just trying to keep your mental health good.
In the fire service, we have the benefit of when we go back to the station, we can sit together and we can talk about what we just saw, how we work through it, how we deal with it. Review the calls so we can always improve on how we're doing things. So we have that benefit, but, there are times where, we want to make sure people are good when they're going home and, aren't taking things home with them, that they can talk it out, or if they need anything, to come back to us and say, hey, I could use a little more help with this.
Right. Yeah, no, that's an excellent answer. I understand that the Janesville Fire Department conducts numerous fire inspections and public education sessions annually. Can you elaborate on how you engage with the community and why you find working with our community to be important?
So the fire crews and our Fire Prevention Bureau do fire inspections. And I think for the public to really realize is a lot of these rules, ordinances, things like that go into a fire inspection or a public safety inspection are based on tragedies that have happened in the past. And the fire service, communities, building codes, all that, those are all learning experiences from previous things that have occurred. So people kind of need to remember that when we are out and we might find something that we want them to fix, is that this stuff's always based on something that's happened before that we've learned from.
Yep.
Getting out, we do a lot of public education, pub ed events that we try to reach out to the community, provide them information about being safe, fire prevention, but not just that, about being safe around water, pools, things like that as well. When it comes to myself reaching out to the community, since I've been appointed, one of my goals is to really work on some of the internal but also external partnerships between the city and reaching out to ECHO, the YWCA, Forward Janesville, groups like that, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, to see how the fire department can interact and work with them and just be a good partner in the community.
Right. Yeah. No, that's an excellent answer. Yeah, it's all about the community with you guys. I mean, that's why you do what you do for the community, and it's great hearing you guys do fire inspections and you learn from things that have happened in the past and use those experiences to help you in the future. So I understand that being fire chief is a lot about the experience that you've built, but it's also about the leadership qualities you have. So can you explain how you take this team of firefighters and motivate them?
So motivation is different with each firefighter, paramedic, each member of the department. So it's getting to understand the people you work with and the team you work with, to what motivates them, what gets them ready to get to work and do their job the best they can. A lot of firefighter paramedics, most of them, are self-motivated and don't need much to get out there and do a great job. But, there are times, but, we try to tailor it to each company, person, depending on, what we're working through.
Yeah, you guys are real people. I mean, this job has to be draining after a while. But what is it like leading that team of people?
I mean, it's a pleasure. I mean, they're great people. Great firefighter paramedics, great men and women that really have dedicated a lot to the community to improve themselves, but also make the community safe and improve the community itself.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So I know being the fire chief, you have to make a lot of hard decisions, like on the spot. So how do you handle making those ethical choices?
So as a fire chief, it's a little different than where I was as a battalion chief, and different roles is most of the decisions I make now are non-emergent. We're not at an emergency scene. So I do my best to take in as much information, do some research, talk to people maybe internally but also externally, other fire chiefs, to see how they've addressed some issues and take all that and make my judgment from there, or make that decision from there to what's best for the community, the department, and just kind of crumple it up and see what comes out.
Yeah. Did you have to make more difficult ethical decisions when you were the battalion chief?
No, I don't think so. It's just a different mindset when you're sitting there supervising, an emergency scene. There's so many different things. It's such a dynamic scene or dynamic situation that you take it in little bits and pieces, and you're watching and you're listening, seeing what the firefighters internally are telling you, and making those decisions, what's safe for the people inside. Are we clear? Do we get everybody out? Things like that. And then that next role, we start at life safety, then we go to, controlling the fire, and then property conservation. Those are kind of the 3 points that we look at as firefighters and command personnel.
Yeah, it sounds like each situation that you're put in is unique, and you have to just use your best judgment from experiences that you've had in the past.
Yeah, and the fire service, the fire department here in Janesville, one day you can go to a water rescue, the next is a medical emergency. A little later in the day you could go to a car accident that needs extrication or needs something special. And then later that night you could go to a fire. So there's so many different things that the men and women of the Janesville Fire Department have to know and respond to, keep up on, with their training and knowledge. That it's not just, like you said earlier, just not medical and fires, a lot more that goes into this job.
Oh yeah, no, completely. So it sounds like, just from being an intern and working in city government, I've had to do a lot of 9-to-5 type office jobs, and I've loved my internship, but I've realized that's not something I want to go into, because I love the constant change. I love that each day, doesn't look the same as the next, and I want to find a job that looks like that. And it sounds like, being in the firefighting scene, no 2 jobs are the same.
No, you come to work every morning, and one of the differences too is we don't do 9 to 5. The firefighters that people see in the stations are working 24-hour shifts. They come in at 7 in the morning, they work the entire day, and go home at 7 the next day. So they work that full 24-hour shift, and it is different. You walk in and you don't know what's going to happen that day. You might have some training or some other activities that are scheduled, but those are even interrupted at times by emergency incidents or things that just come up throughout the day.
Exactly. So talking about emergency response, how do you take all these resources that you have and allocate them effectively?
So one of the great examples recently was the tornado and some of the other severe weather we had, Captain Morris and Captain Herget from the fire department, they both looked at the broader picture of what was going on. They used, is there life safety, is there danger to property, and that's kind of how they prioritized when they sent units to different areas. If it was just a tree down or something like that, a wire down with no arcing or things like that, they might have put that on the back burner to something that was a medical emergency, fire in a tree, you know, structural damage, things like that. That's how they allocated it on a bigger scale. On a smaller scale, like at a fire, as I stated earlier, we just have those priorities of life safety, you know, stopping the fire and property conservation. So we use those kind of things to guide us throughout an incident. And a lot of the times the battalion chief or the incident commander will provide direction to the fire crews, but a lot of times they know exactly what they need to do, and they say, hey, we're on scene, we're going to take this assignment.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great answer. It sounds like your job comes with a lot of pressure, especially when you talk about not knowing what that day is going to look like. So how do you personally handle working under pressure?
So when I was making my way through the ranks, lieutenant, captain, and battalion chief, there's a lot of great books that were talked about those kind of things that were related to being in combat, also police officers under distress, and then they did finally come out with a book that was centric to firefighters of how to control, you know, kind of the stress and things like that, and, you know, bring yourself, slow your heart rate down, just kind of make sure you're not in tunnel vision and you're hearing everything, seeing everything. That was always my goal, is, you know, take a few deep breaths and talk calmly, and if you kind of give a sense of calm, everyone around you feels that sense and they are calm as well. We have great people at the JFD, great men and women that do a great job with this as well.
Yeah, that's a great thing to mention, just staying calm under pressure just to help those around you. Because I feel like if the leader shows weakness, shows that they're scared, then everybody else is going to be even more. So that's a really good point that you bring up. Yeah. So looking ahead to, you know, future years of being fire chief, what are some of your long-term goals for your department?
Continued community outreach.
Right.
Really getting out there and seeing what the expectations of the community are for the fire department and how we can meet those expectations. Work on expanding the department, our training, professional development, get some additional resources out there for, you know, getting people out to train. And, you know, budgets are tough, you know, finances are tough through the state of Wisconsin. So we're doing our best with the city management to really find ways to be creative in how we get that professional development, either inside the department or outside the department. But also that getting out to service organizations, presenting to them what the JFD is, you know, how we go about things, you know, just being a champion for our department and the men and women there, and making the community as safe as I can in my tenure.
Right. It sounds like you achieve those goals by communication and training, which sound like two very important pieces of your job. Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with the vast community of Janesville before we wrap things up?
One of the frequently asked questions that I hear all the time is the 24-hour shift. And we work 24-hour shifts, and there are some downtime, but the firefighters, firefighter paramedics, and everybody at the JFD, it's not we're responding at all hours.
Right.
And emergencies come in at all hours. So that's one of the things that, you know, to keep in mind as the community. But also, one of the other questions we always get is, why does a fire engine go to medical calls? So some of the medical calls, the paramedics that are in the back are doing so many things, they would have to do so many things with just the two of them. They manage your airway, they give drugs and medications, they monitor your heart, a bunch of different things like that. And sometimes there's just not enough hands with just two people, so they ask for an additional engine that helps with getting the patient in and out of the residence, but also providing that extra hand, because most of the firefighters in the city of Janesville have been a paramedic at one point in their life or in their careers. So they're able to help and jump in at different points in time to really assist with what's best for the community and best for that patient, I should state.
Oh yeah, so everyone's cross-trained pretty much.
Yes, yep, and they all know. Sometimes it's very well, or usually it's very well orchestrated how it works in the back, and they don't even talk and things are just getting done. They do a great job of taking care of the patient to the best of their abilities with given what they are.
Yeah, it sounds like they have a very specific system in place and it works, and that's great for you guys.
Yeah, and it's changed so much even since I was a paramedic. The amount of and different kind of medications the firefighter paramedics give in the back, the trust that Mercy Health, our medical direction, provides to managing airways, doing things, you know, medicines for your heart, and all these different aspects of what a paramedic does is really great.
Right. Yeah, so if we go back, you mentioned working the 24-hour shift, and I can't imagine having to be on call for 24 hours like that. Like, I'm exhausted after my 4-hour waitressing shift. Like, so what was your experience like with that? How many long, hard days did you have, or were you able to build up that motivation? So
we do have a structured work day that ends at about 4:30. Then the firefighters usually work out. Some of them work out before they come in, but treadmills, running, weights, things like that to keep themselves in good physical condition. After that, it's kind of some personal time where people make dinner, have dinner together, maybe watch a game, things like that. And we are afforded the opportunity to go to sleep at work, but it's very few times that you get a full night's sleep anymore. We're almost to 11,500 calls. When I first got hired, I believe we were around the 3,000 calls a year.
Wow.
So there's been a tremendous growth or a lot of increase in our call volume.
Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of different things. People don't know what to do in certain situations, whereas people, you know, different generations, things like that, know that the best way to get some help is to call, or don't know what else to do. I mean, sometimes we go and help people that have something just wrong at their house. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to shut the water off, so we go help them out. You know, ducks fall into a drain. Ducklings, we go help with that. We do a lot of different things, and I think if people don't know what to do or don't know who to call, they call the fire department. Right. And we're happy to help them.
Yeah, and you're a great resource for them. So is that why one of your goals is community engagement and some of those trainings?
Yeah. Community outreach, see what we can do to help the community and be that great partner that we already are, but how can we make it better?
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's so great to hear. Awesome. Well, looks like that's all the time we have for today. Chief Murphy, thank you again so much for joining me on this episode of Park Place. Your leadership in our community, and it's commendable for sure. And it's clear to see that you're very, very good at what you do. And, I hope you have a great rest of your time as being the fire chief, and I look forward to hearing from you again soon. Before we wrap things up, I want to extend my appreciation to our viewers and our residents for tuning in today. Your support and engagement are what make Janesville such a supportive and inclusive community. For Park Place Views and the City of Janesville, I'm Peyton Walz. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember to join us again next time.